Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and others. I'm George Jones, aka the Peculiar Lefty, and here's day 9 in my 31 Days of Horror. Today I'll be dealing with the film 28 Days Later by Danny Boyle, starring Cillian Murphy. Cillian Murphy? However you pronounce it. Now, 28 Days Later is one of the most original and innovative horror films ever made, and to explain why, I have to first explain what kind of film it is. See, there are basically three types of films here. Most films fall into one of the first two categories. You've got narrative films. Now, an example of that would be something like The Wizard of Oz, where the entire point of it is the story, and everything else, the characters, the setting, etc., exists to serve the story. The second type of film would be something like The 400 Blows or Synecdoche, New York, where everything is about a character, one character or multiple characters, and the plot, the setting, etc. all exist to serve the development of that character or characters. 28 Days Later is something entirely different. It's not about the story, and it's not about the characters as such. What Danny Boyle does is he takes these characters, this story, this setting, this idea, he takes all these elements, but he doesn't focus on any one element as the key part of the film. Instead, he combines them into a kind of cinematic poem. And I can't really think of many other films that do that, except for maybe experimental films like Koyaanisqatsi. 28 Days Later is a sequence of moments. Each moment is strung together in such a way as to create an emotional / aesthetic response, not through the conventional devices of character, story, and so on, but in the way that a Miles Davis song or a T.S. Eliot poem affects the reader or the listener. It's entirely based around subconscious associations. When you're watching 28 Days Later, make sure you really pay attention to the way everything's shot. Pay attention to the music, everything down to the lighting, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Take, for example, the scene where they go to a supermarket and they find shelf after shelf of products untouched by looters or people trying to survive or the infected just blundering in and knocking stuff around. That scene doesn't work on a logical level, and it's completely unnecessary on a narrative level. Doesn't develop the characters, doesn't advance the story particularly. It's good, isn't it? It adds something, doesn't it? It adds poetry. There's just something about it that resonates. And the same is true when they're out in the country and they see those horses running around. Now, of course, many films have moments like that and are still narrative films, character-based films, whatever. They're moments that serve to illuminate the film in a way, in the same way that a candle illuminates a room so you can see what's in it better. But that's not what Danny Boyle is doing here. The entire film is made up of these moments. And it's difficult to explain because it really is something that you have to sit down and watch the film and experience to understand. But I am trying my best to describe it here. Me trying to describe it is not going to work. I've tried to explain how it works, I guess, so that going into it, you can have a basis to understand what's going on if you didn't already. But that's really all I can do here in terms of conveying the poetry of 28 Days Later. The story, though, I'm sure one you're all familiar with. It's a well-known film. Bloke wakes up from a coma in post-apocalyptic London, and then he wanders around through the hospital. He tries to piece together what's happened, and along the way we get some amazing shots of empty London, which apparently Danny Boyle had to do really early in the morning when no one was around, because he didn't have the budget to clear parts of the streets. But in any case, Cillian Murphy, the bike messenger, eventually meets up with some other survivors, and then after that they come across Brendan Gleeson and his character's daughter. And Brendan Gleeson, he's just always fucking fantastic. And they embark on a journey up to the north, I think to Scotland, but I can't quite remember, because there's a radio signal coming from apparently some survivors. When they get to the source of the broadcast, it's this old, crumbling, stately home that is now occupied by Christopher Eccleston and his band of rapist soldiers. Things start off well, but as tends to happen with bands of rapist soldiers, things go wrong. Cillian Murphy, the young child, and the woman, who Murphy is by now in love with, manage to escape. And then, of course, it splits into the famous double ending, where there's one ending right at the end of the film, then if you stay and watch the credits, you get an alternative ending, and it's never explained which one is the quote-unquote correct one, which I love, by the way. And I love that the sequel doesn't address it either. It's just left in the air. It's really good. Anyway, watch 28 Days Later, but watch it the way you'd look at a painting or listen to a piece of music, because really it does have more in common with song, music, and other non-logical art forms, I'm going to say, than it does with cinema. Thanks for listening, and join me again tomorrow where I'll be doing another of my 31 Days of Horror.